Welcome to What's Going On, the weekly podcast and videocast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of What's Going On. I'm Pastor Katie here at First United Methodist, and I'm glad you could join me for this episode. Today, again, I want to just run through all of the things that are gearing up because it's January, it's a brand new year, we've got a lot going on, and I want you to be aware of it. And we'll see where that leads us, because sometimes when I do these, I don't always have a plan for what I'm going to say, which can be very interesting because you're getting me off the cuff. I don't know if you noticed this over time. When I preach, I actually am very intentional about how I preach. I actually manuscript what I preach. The way that I do that actually, within my manuscript, there are the signals for where all the slides get, because the people in the back will run the slides for me. And so once in a while I go off script, but from the pulpit, I feel like it's really important that I'm very intentional about what I'm saying, because that is there's a lot of people listening, and there's a lot of people that are listening with the intent that God is using what I'm saying for them. I do not have that same belief about this podcast. This podcast is a little more, you're getting more Pastor Katie, and kind of what's going on when I'm in my office. I'm not like in the pulpit. I feel like those are two kind of separate things. There's Pastor Katie in the pulpit and kind of what I believe that God is asking me to communicate. And then there's Pastor Katie sitting behind her desk, which, I mean, I do write my sermons from behind my desk, but again, I feel that these are two separate things. So I hope that you understand that what you hear in the podcast is very much me, not always super planned about what I'm saying. I'm sure that's come across in these things, that again, you're just getting sort of stream of consciousness. But hopefully you enjoy that. So, I mean, if you're watching it, you must to some degree be enjoying this. So 605 kicked off this week again, and confirmation, youth group, all of that. So we are back in the swing of things there, which is really fun and exciting. I know 605 has been launched with some new curriculum, and that's pretty cool. And so I'm really excited about that. One thing that is going to get added on the 22nd of January, so in a couple of weeks, Kids Bells is coming back. Now, in the bulletin last week, it said it's going to be on Sunday mornings. We have made a change there. And now it is going to be on Wednesday nights from 5 to 5:30. So right before the 6:05 time. So you can come at 5. Actually, if you could come at like 4:50 so that your kid is ready to go to play, because half an hour isn't a super long time to practice. And if you're using a lot of that time to get things set up, you're not going to get as much practice in. So if you can have your kids here by 4:50 ready to go, that would be amazing. But starting on January 22nd, this is for kids in 3rd grade and up, all the way through, I mean, high school, really. And they will share in worship, probably on the same days that Jubilee Bells shares. We'll have a real bell-heavy Sunday. I think that'll be like the second Sundays of the month. But special thanks to Jill Wilson for expanding her bell choir directorship. I don't know if that's the right word. And launching this again. She has been in talks with Sume, our previous bell choir director, to kind of get the lowdown and all of the know-how for children's bells. But we're really excited to have that coming back. I know we've had some kids that have been eager to do it again. So that's the 22nd that's gonna start. So not this coming Wednesday, but the next one. This coming Sunday, Disciple is coming back. Disciple Fast Track. Watcha! We are going to be doing the New Testament, and it is a very exciting thing. There are 12 lessons, but there's 13 weeks for meeting, because this first Sunday is just sort of getting back in the swing of things. If there's anybody who's new coming in, to make sure that they're getting the stuff. And so there's no homework for this first Sunday. Now, saying that, after this Sunday, there will be homework every week. Disciple is our most in-depth study that we're doing at the church right now. But we're going to be going through the New Testament just to give you kind of some idea What it does is it has sort of a theme word for the week, and it has kind of a title, and you do a variety of reading. It looks like the first week we're going to be doing a lot in the Gospel of Matthew. And then there's also, so you read in the Bible, but then you also have some more material within this that kind of gives you background information, pulls out themes and ideas. And then, so you do all of that prior to coming. Then we also kind of will discuss that. We'll break into small groups, go a little bit deeper. Um, and it's just a really, really great series. There's so much to learn, but also the connection that you get with the other people. It's just been phenomenal, and I've loved it. Again, if one of the reasons that you hesitated doing this was I've got kids, we have someone to do daycare because my husband and I are both in it. So our kids are here. We've got another kid. So if that was your hesitation, don't let it be your hesitation. I know for some of you, you said 8 o'clock is too early. Um, is it though? Is it? For many of us, you're getting kids out the door every weekday, 8 o'clock, 8:30 to get to school. This is your opportunity to go a little bit deeper. And the New Testament, I mean, Old Testament, there's that was deep, and that's a lot of material to cover. We certainly didn't read the entire Old Testament. We won't read the entire New Testament, but I would encourage you that even if you didn't do the Old Testament with us, you would be more than welcome. We would love to have you come and join us for the New Testament study. Again, it's 13 weeks. It's a big commitment. But the more you put into these kind of things, the more you're going to get out. And if you've been longing for connection, if you've been longing to get to know some more people, if you've been longing to dig into scripture and you don't know where to start, disciple is it. I also want to throw out another option, and that is the conference through the bishop is doing a Luke Acts 2025. And I pulled this off of our conference website, but basically every week for 2025, we're going to read a chapter of Luke and Acts. So this week, we're supposed to just read Luke chapter one chapter a week. And then there's also, you can download. And if you would like for me to download this for you and give you a copy of this, I certainly would be happy to do that. But here, it's a place where you can write your reflections, and it's got some like, what's your takeaway from this chapter? And so it's kind of like a little workbook to go with it. So this would be another great option of, and if you're like, I can't do the come and be part of a small group at 8 o'clock thing, but you're looking for a way to dig into scripture this year that's maybe a little more manageable for you, let's do this. I would even be willing, if there's a small group of you that are wanting to go through this together, um, to meet up even on Zoom once a month, just be like, how's it going, to touch base, to check in. I would be happy to do that. So that's another option for you. A third option for you, this coming Tuesday, we are kicking off again our Tuesday lunch study, and that is no homework. It's a video study. We're going to be doing Amy Jill Levine's Difficult Words of Jesus. I love Amy Jill Levine. I think she's an incredible teacher. She is a New Testament scholar, but she's also Jewish, but has an incredible appreciation for Jesus and brings so much knowledge of the Jewish context of the New Testament in particular to those of us who that is not in our wheelhouse. And she sees things that is obvious to her that is not obvious to us. And so I'm really excited. I've not done this study yet. And so I think it's going to be an incredible time, and it's going to go over passages that when we read them we go, I don't know what to do with that, and we just maybe kind of skim over them, and to really help us engage and wrestle with and question, and how do we deal with this, how do we reconcile this, how do we understand these things. And so that's starting this coming Tuesday. And that one runs for 5 or 6 weeks, I think. And so that's Tuesdays at noon. Again, video study, no homework required. I like to keep things like give you options. And if I haven't given you enough options yet, the third one is our pastor book club. That's the one we meet once a month. Unfortunately, in December, the weather wasn't great on the night that we met, so we did skip it. But January, in January, we're meeting a week early because I have Board of Ordained Ministry the night that we would normally have it scheduled. And so I picked a really small, short book. For January, but it is one of my favorites. This is the first time I've picked a book for Pastor Book Club that I've actually read before. And I've actually read it multiple times because of how much I appreciate it. It is called Help Thanks Wow, The Three Essential Prayers by Anne Lamott. If you have not read anything by Anne Lamott, I would highly encourage it. She's a fantastic writer. She's someone who came to the faith later in life and has a whole story behind that, but it also helps her to relate Christian themes and spiritual themes to people who maybe were in her shoes for so many years. And so, if you want an accessible book on prayer, this is it. I think this for me, this has been one of the best. And so that is January 20th at 7 p.m. book club. So you read the book, you come and talk about it. Even if you haven't read the book, you can come join the conversation on prayer. So that's that. Another thing, so this week I was at the Epiphany gathering that the bishop held in Aberdeen with other clergy from around the Dakotas Conference, and it was all about renewal, reset, refresh. Um, there were other words in there as well. But one of the things that they offered were different prayer opportunities and stations. And one of the things that they let us take, and it actually these were made for when General Conference was supposed to be in 2020 in Minnesota, and then that never happened. And so there were different things that were made for that that never got given away. And so we got some of them, which has been nice. And one of them is this. This is a finger prayer labyrinth. So prayer labyrinths, it might look kind of like a maze, but really it's not a maze because there's only one way in and one way out. Labyrinths can be as small as this. This is one that you do with your finger, or they can be very large. And my favorite labyrinths are ones that you get to walk through. We are very blessed here in Yankton to have a labyrinth that you can walk through, a prayer labyrinth, and that is at West Side Park. That was installed in part by the nuns here, but also I believe a particular family sponsored quite a bit of it. And it's a wonderful prayer activity. Sometimes in prayer, it can be hard to stay focused. I don't know if that's true for you. It's certainly true for me. And so having tools that can help us focus our minds and our hearts can be really helpful. So we've got the book talking about kinds of prayer, but there's also different types of ways of praying, not just what we're saying, but how we're engaging our whole selves in prayer. So a finger labyrinth, what you would do with this one is you start here and you just trace along and you would just slowly go around. And that act of moving your finger, it's just like meditation almost, and meditating and prayer in a lot of ways can be that, where maybe you're just thinking about someone that you care about or something that you're working through, and you're inviting God into that space. And for me, having an activity as simple as tracing my finger focuses my brain. I'm also someone who tends to color a lot in prayers, or do any sort of menial activity works really well at focusing my brain. So, for example, one of the things I will do as part of a prayer practice is to color. This is things I was coloring on our retreat. Also, it helps me to listen. If I'm supposed to just sit and listen, I can't just sit and listen. I don't have that ability. But if I'm doing something like coloring, it focuses my brain enough to do that. So that's another way, um, again, of engaging your body to help make your prayers be more focused. These are prayer beads. So these are like a Protestant version of a Catholic rosary. If any of you are familiar with that prayer practice. So on a rosary, there's a certain prayer for each bead. Well, there's nothing to say that Protestants can't have a similar type of tool. And so with these, again, having something tactile to hold to keep you focused, maybe you use each bead for a different prayer request. Perhaps you choose, there's certain different kinds of beads. Maybe every time you hit a different sort of bead, maybe you say the Lord's Prayer. Maybe you say, maybe you alternate between a help prayer, a thanks prayer, and a wow prayer. Um, how that happens for you is going to be different, and there's not one right or wrong way to do it. And these are just tools, right, to help you. Because again, sometimes we think that with spiritual disciplines or spiritual practices that there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And generally speaking, prayer that is uh prayed for the sake of someone else, like because you want them to think a certain way about you, that might be the wrong way to pray. But any tools that we can use, any way that allows us to be before God, um, that's not a wrong way to do things. All right. Like this is not the only way to pray. It is a good way to pray because it shutting your eyes closes out the distractions around you, maybe holding your hands together. Um, Again, it's a tactile thing, right? Engaging your body, helping your whole body understand what you're doing, and giving yourself permission that if this doesn't work, find what does work. And that can look like a whole variety of things. I've got books on my shelves that have other options for how to pray. There's circle prayers, there's coloring prayers, there's I've got a whole book on paths to prayer. I even have a Bible that's a coloring Bible because people in the conference have learned that coloring is one of the ways that I can kind of quiet my mind. And so over the years, they've gifted me different tools that go along with that. So um, again, all of that sort of spawned from, connected from our Pastor Book Club book again on prayer. Also, this coming Sunday. So last Sunday was Epiphany Sunday. Again, if you weren't able to be here and to receive your star word, we still have those. I am also more than willing to send these out. And so if you want to comment on this video, say, hey, would you please send me a star, or shoot me a message or an email with your address? I'd be happy to send those to you. Again, star words are something that we made up. It's not like biblically mandated, but it's that idea of, again, creating an avenue where we're paying attention and that God can use it. And I believe that the Holy Spirit is always trying to draw us in. And so, again, it's just like opening this avenue, saying, I'm going to pay attention to this word this year, God. Um, and can you use that in my life? Or sometimes we sort of believe that God has a hand in which star you get, and that is part of the process. And so again, I would be happy to include you. You have plenty of stars. We'd be happy to share that with you. So that was last Sunday. This coming Sunday is Baptism of the Lord. We kind of have bam, 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 like different sort of special Sundays in the church. And the big practice that goes along with Baptism of the Lord Sunday is a um, remembrance of our baptisms. And so know that that's going to become part of our worship service this coming week. And I'm really excited. Uh, it's again at the beginning of the year, I think there's just a lot of reset, renew, right? That I mean, the bishop I think was right to have our whole theme for our getaway be that idea of it's a new year, it's a new opportunity, and to remember our baptisms once again as we move into this new year and remember who we are and whose we are, and that God has the right to tell us who we are, not the world, and who we are as beloved. And so I'm really looking forward to sharing all of that with you. And then starting the following Sunday, we are going to be launching into a new sermon series in that it will start a new series, but the series itself is not new. It is a series that's been out for a long time. I've been kind of digging through some like archive stuff for some real gems. And the last couple of years, I took us back to like five practices of fruitful congregations, which is sort of a classic at this point. This time I'm pulling a retro seems not appropriate, but it's at least 10 years old at this point, but it's so good. And that in the last 10 years, I have thought more and more about this series. I taught it in my first appointment. I didn't, at that appointment, I was the associate, so I didn't control what we were preaching, but I did this as a class. And I kid you not, of all the classes I probably ever teach, this is the one that has stuck with me, and its themes honestly become more and more relevant. And so it just felt like, yeah, we need to go back to this. And so we're going to be doing a series called The Renegade Gospel by Mike Slaughter. Mike Slaughter was the pastor, a United Methodist pastor of Ginghamsburg Church in Ohio, where he took that church and it was it was like a suburb kind of church, but it was dying in so many ways. And he came and he started preaching, and a bunch of people left because they didn't like what he was saying because he was challenging them. But then, so he like shrunk the church, and then it just blew up exponentially because the people who stayed were really committed to what they were hearing, and they were really living the gospel, and their lives are being transformed, and people saw that. And in this series, The Renegade Gospel, it's going back and really looking at who Jesus actually was and not who we think he was. But too often, people sort of make Jesus into who they think he was, which is often a reflection of who they are, rather than really taking Jesus for who he was and what he said and what he was about. And so I'm so excited to be doing this series. Even if you've heard this series before, it might have been 10 years ago. And I feel like we can come back to it with fresh eyes, and in the world we are in now, and making sure that, again, we are coming back to who Jesus was, and that when we commit to follow Jesus, it's actually Jesus and not who we've made him into be. And so I'm excited for that. Yeah, I feel like we've talked about some prayer, we've talked about discipleship, we've talked about lots of good things today. I hope that you're staying safe and warm this January season. And until next time, God bless. Thank you for joining us for this episode of What's Going On, a video and audio podcast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. We'd love to have you join us for worship on Sundays at 10 a.m., either in person or via our live stream, which can be found at our website, www.firstumcyankton.org, or by searching First UMC Yankton on YouTube.